Hello and welcome to our Coaches Cast. Today I've got Matt Yelvington, who is the former defensive coordinator over at Houston Christian High School, back-to-back conference championship games, one-time winner of that game. Uh, Matt, how you doing today?
Doing great. How about you, Jonathan?
Fantastic, man. It's been a busy couple months. I wanted to get this video done a lot sooner, but I appreciate you being flexible and helping me out, getting it on the schedule. Um, so currently we're both free agents.
We are free agents indeed.
We're,
Yep.
we're both free agents. So walk me through. Tell me how's from the season ending to now current like our free agent status. Like what's life been like? Not having like your finger in a defense like schematically, philosophically. What's been going on?
Yeah, great question. You don't realize how much you miss something and until you don't have it anymore. And I definitely miss Friday afternoons. Coach Eisman, former head coach at Houston Christian, and we'd get together pretty much every Friday afternoon and just talk ball and talk scheme, talk players, player development, all that kind of fun stuff. And man, just miss that. Miss being in the locker room with the guys. Miss checking on them, seeing how they're doing. Um, and yeah, it's been interesting and just I'm a big strategy guy. I run. I have my own small business and help. One of the things I do is consulting for small businesses, and the space I live in is strategy, the strategy world, and how to strategize and how to get things going and how to take an organization to become successful. And I've used that a lot whenever it's come to football and my football coaching. I mean, I just miss sitting around strategizing about how we can get better at what we do. And definitely have missed that. Definitely missed those opportunities to sit and talk ball, talk X's and O's, simplify, fix, make things better. But more importantly, just miss kind of the everyday relationships that you build with your players and getting to see them and seeing how their life is going, what's going on in their lives, and how I can help support them and encourage them to be better young men.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things like you mentioned. You don't really know how much you miss it until it's gone. Like I did it for a decade straight, and then I really do kind of believe that there was a divine intervention that took place and took me out of coaching for 2 full years. And I was kind of at peace with it, and then I got thrown back in coaching on what again seemed like divine intervention kind of a thing. I really wasn't searching for it; it kind of found me, and now you know 6 months later back on the
Right back
well,
at it. Yeah.
if I don't coach again, I still think I'm at peace with it. I've come to terms, but at the same time, if I get the opportunity again, and uh, man, it's so much fun. It's one of those like I've got a couple former players that are about to go into coaching, and one just graduated from college, and he that's like his plan. And I always tell him like, man, it's maybe the most rewarding bad job in the world.
Mm,
Because it's extremely rewarding getting to work with young people in that realm. Um, it's a sucky job sometimes because you find yourself a free agent from time
yep.
to time. It's a sucky job because of the
It's a
hours that
grind.
we put in and the emotional and physical investment you put in as not the ages but as old men, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so your body starts to break down, your health suffers a little bit. You get on the fast food grind sometimes, and you're like, man, I gained 10 pounds. I'm supposed to lose 15 pounds this year. Uh, I think we've all been there before. Um, so it's so rewarding, but it does suck sometimes. But try to make the best of it. We're with what we got, and you know, keep pushing forward. But yeah, the rewarding aspect of like getting to work with young people. I thought I was going to be able to scratch that itch when I was just teaching, but I
It's not
quickly
the same.
realized it's just not the same. It's not the same, and I personally couldn't deal with that, and so I left the classroom too.
Yeah.
Um, because it always just kind of left me wanting more, and that's not a great place to be in doing something that you don't truly love to be doing. So, um, yeah, I totally get that. All in all, And then, you look at different teams and how things are being constructed, and us kind of coming from like a private school most recently. You and I have both been in public school and private school. And then uh, the status of like college and NIL and building teams just based off players instead of building programs, right? And so
Yep.
building a program, a functioning organism that can continuously grow, that almost runs itself in a way. I think that's something that you and I have talked a lot about, that
Yep.
we're both pretty passionate about. Um, so yeah, what defines team versus program for you? What kind of, where do those lines start to blur, or where do they kind of fit on each side of the spectrum?
Yeah, I'd say so I came into coaching late. I spent the first 10 years of my adult career and vocational ministry, working as a pastor at a church and a youth pastor, not a pastor. Not that that's anyways. Just to be clear. But got into education and got into to coaching late and didn't like had no idea how much I just absolutely love coaching. And kind of based on what you were saying a little bit about all the things that coaching is and how it can be not fun. Me and some coaches one time were sitting around, on a Saturday like you do, sitting around just kind of waiting around and doing nothing. And we figured out how much we get paid an hour while we
Don't
were
do it.
doing big 6A football in Texas, and I think it came out to about a buck 25 an hour. And I think that just as a statement of why do you do what you do, right? You're not doing it for money, especially high school sports, I mean, even college sports. GAs and division 3 coaches are not getting
JUCO,
paid. JUCO, like they're all living in the same apartment and trying to kind of work their way up. And I think there's kind of two kind of coaches maybe out there that there's coaches that do it because it's a calling. And I think coaches like that are program builders more than they are team builders. And I think there's actually, unfortunately, there's coaches out there that coaching's about them. It's about what they want for themselves, either moving up in the process to become, not that you shouldn't move up, but they're seeking their own and trying to be, either become a college coach or being a head coach. And they're kind of seeking their own deal, or they're building a program. And the difference, I got my start with an old school coach, Coach Randy Cunningham, out of Travis High School. He was my guy. He was my mentor. He was a guy that just was about building a program, and that meant we didn't have freshmen play foot. We didn't have freshmen play varsity, right? Like I know that sounds crazy, but we in today's world, it's kind of whoever's the best man, get him up on the varsity team. If he can catch you some balls and catch some touchdowns, then that's great. Well, he didn't do that. He wasn't, and very few sophomores on varsity, right? Even though they were talented, they were good. But he was all about building a program in which freshmen worked together, played together, learned from each other, and then that just got them better and better and better. By the time they were juniors and seniors on varsity, they were good friends. They built brotherhood. They built companionship because they struggled together, they suffered together, they worked together as a unit. And when we do that, I think it creates a unity amongst your players that ultimately creates a real team eventually when they're varsity guys that really actually want to play together because they fought with each other. They've been in the trenches together. They've been successful at different levels. And that just carries on versus coaches that basically kind of put the best 11 guys on the field, whether it's freshman to senior. And the problem is that I think that just creates all kinds of attitudes that are unnecessary, lack of commitment to the team, bigger egos that aren't necessary, and then ultimately just burns the kids out, right? Like, if we've had, you use those kids up, their freshman and sophomore year, potentially, if you're playing them up high. By the time they're seniors, they've been beat up for 4 years, and they're just tired, and they're just their bodies aren't used to that level of play. A 14-year-old, I remember my first year coaching and at Houston Christian, we were playing 14-year-olds against 18-year-olds just because we had to, not because we wanted to.
right?
Um, It's just we weren't a very big team. We had some guys that needed to play because and so you got coaches getting upset about put players playing positions and their routes and their effort and their aggression. And I'm going, that kid's 14, right? He's 14 years old. Um, that middle high safety is an 18-year-old, and this kid's 14 coming across the middle, right? Like that's rough. And so I just think, you either wear those kids out, you beat their bodies up, and so I don't think that's really helpful. But most importantly, I think it's about building a character of a team. When you're playing varsity as a sophomore or a freshman, you don't really understand what the program's about because you haven't been in it. You haven't had to play JV freshman team and really understand the inner workings of what the program is about, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. You just get thrown into the fire. And I think there's real value to freshman, sophomore, freshman team, JV teams, really learning the system and waiting your turn and waiting your opportunity to arrive and kind of pay your dues. We live in a world that just paying your dues is not like a thing anymore. And I think that's a real detriment to character building. I think it's a real detriment to kids having proper and parents, frankly, having proper expectations of what their kid can and cannot do
Yeah.
on the field. Um, and so as a result of that, you got kids that are just kind of thrown out there in the front lines in the fire. And I think it's actually just detrimental to their development as a human being, as a player, uh, as humility. Parents begin to assume things about their kids that just aren't true. Um, and I just think it just is ultimately hurting football. I think we've moved away with the NIL stuff. I hate it. I think kids, I think there's a way. I mean, I agree that there seems to be the situation where in college sports, some people are making a lot of money off the back of kids, right? I totally understand that. It doesn't seem fair. And I think there's a way to do it, but the way we're doing it right now about paying players is completely broken because we've just moved away from developing players as people and realizing that college sports, high school sports, isn't just about an NIL deal or getting into the NFL. It's about building young men, to be good fathers, to be good husbands, to be good community members. Like that's what college sports was about. That's what high school sports was about. Heck, not that long ago. And
Yeah.
it just seems like we've lost the shark when it comes to that. And I think it's because people are building teams, they're not building programs. And like Dabo Swinney is one of my guys. I love Dabo Swinney because he's trying to build programs, but he's struggling. Like that's a program that's struggling because the system itself isn't about that anymore. And I appreciate that he just is keeping to try to make that the main thing. And it's just sad for me. It's sad for because it's now seeping down into high school sports. And yeah, 14-year-old kids shouldn't be really thinking about NIL deals. They should be thinking about how to get to class, how to say yes sir, no sir, how to be disciplined, how to be tough, how to work hard. Like those are the things that they should be worried about and focusing on, not NIL deals.
Agreed. And I think
Yeah,
there's, like I said, there's a way to do it. I think there's a lot of people that have capitalized, like I said, off the backs of college players and even some high school players that
yeah,
uh, is probably not the most appropriate way. And but the current system for that is, man, it's the wild wild west. It makes no sense. There's no regulation, and like you gotta be able to regulate this somehow. So I hope that things kind of change for the better. I'm sure that there's something in the works somewhere that's going to hopefully bring some fixes to it. Otherwise, at some point, it's going to collapse, and um, or it'll just become so big that it's not sustainable for people to invest into it. I think. Who knows? But it definitely, the current status of it is ridiculous. Um, that being said, like I know you mentioned, like the freshman sophomore, the 14-year-old thing. If you're at a 3A school in the middle of the piney woods, I've been there. Like
yeah,
sometimes, by
You got to
necessity
do what you got to
that
do.
14 year
Yeah,
old's like, hey, he's the guy, and like he's gonna have to play. We even got in a spot this year where this past fall we had two guys playing
two freshmen.
varsity
Yeah,
on
yep.
as freshmen on offense because uh, who else is
We
it
had
gonna
to.
be?
Yeah,
Like,
that's right. Yeah, next man up.
there wasn't a junior that was there to take his place because the junior
Yeah,
broke his foot. So like,
yeah,
um, sometimes things happen, and hopefully you've built a program in a way that if you have to take that 14-year-old, that 15-year-old, and slot them in there, it's not the end of the world. Um,
yeah.
and I think
Well, I think there's a
that's
difference between reality and ideal, right? So
yes, ideally
I mean,
that would never have
that's
happened.
exactly right. And I think that's the difference between program and team, if you will, right? Like
Yeah,
a program guy is going, this is not ideal, but we have to do it because it's the only way we can sort of succeed and be successful at this particular point in time. But he recognizes that this is not the ideal. This is not what we want. Where I think what I call a team coach or team guys like, no, let's just go use him for 2 or 3 reps, just so we can give some other guy a rep and so some rest and so a 14-year-old kid that's pretty good at something gets 3 or 4 carries a game, and doesn't play JV, and he's getting no reps down on the JV at all because he's up on the varsity because we need him to run 3 or 4 deals. Like I just that's the kind of
yes.
differentiator that I would suggest say that's problematic.
Yeah, just wanted to lead us
Yeah,
into a clarification on those two
yeah,
things
yeah, for
because I
sure,
know
for
some
sure.
people
Yeah,
will be like, "What are you talking about?" No,
yeah, 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 yeah,
there's a
yeah,
reason here, and like if it's the reason, like what side of that reason do you fall on? But
yeah,
you
yeah.
mentioned like the youth pastor stuff, and obviously we just came from private high school situation. Um, Real quick, which did you prefer? Did you prefer like the big 6A school, or did you prefer like the smaller private school environment?
Well, I yeah, so I would say when I first got started coaching, when I worked for Randy, I enjoyed that time because Randy was a program guy, and 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 I just straight up, guys, I'm a follower of Jesus, and I believe that building young men into godly young men is my calling in life and discipleship, and discipling young men into to flourish the life that God intends them to have through relationship with Jesus Christ. Like that's what I'm about, right? That's what drives me. And Coach Cunningham was just all about that, right? He was totally fine with that, and I had a small group of guys that would meet under the FCA, and there's about 12 guys that would meet together on every kind of Monday night and just get in the Word and fellowship, eat, hang out. And Coach Cunningham was just kind of all about that because he understood how that level of connection on my part as a coach, but also the level of connection that the guys had with each other was building a brotherhood, was building a friendship that was deep that would affect the play of the game, right? And so when all that was going on, like it was totally fine. I think in the private school world, particularly at a Christian private school, it just makes that and just amplifies that so much more because we can talk openly, freely, don't have to worry about kind of state I don't know, whatever things about
Right.
faith and separation of church and state. It just makes it a little bit easier. And then just more kids that are kind of along. Don't get me wrong, like Christian school kids have their own issues and problems, and just like private public school kids do. There's just different kind of problems, right? They're different kind of issues, different kind of struggles. And so what I've liked about being at Houston Christian under Coach AJ Eisman is the Christian aspect and the worldview permeated everything that we did. And so everything we did would look through that lens, right? And so we've had things like crowns over trophies. We won a state championship in 3A, SBC 3A. Um, but our rallying cry was crowns over trophies. Like our mission is to glorify God, give it our best, have these principles of what it means to follow Jesus on the football field, outside the football field, and our families. And those things drove us, brotherhood, commitment, wisdom, growing in wisdom and stature. Those things drove us off the field as much as they drove us on the field, and I think it led to our success. Right? I think we We went to the state playoffs twice. We lost the first one in double overtime by a field goal to end the game, which was unfortunate. We could have had that game, potentially been in two state championships, but that's the way the cookie crumbled. Went back the next year, played the same team, and ended up getting the victory. And so, like I think there's a reality that you can have principled program that has principle behind it of doing what's right, seeking what's right, from a Christian standpoint, and still be victorious and still be successful. And I think there's seems to be some ideas potentially out there that like we've got to hide behind that, and we need to like maybe lower that a little bit. And like no, like I think because everything that we read in Scripture about what it means to be a young man, what it means to be a man, absolutely transfers over to the football field, right? Like working hard, honoring your brother, serving one another. I coach defense. All defense is about is letting other people get tackles, right? Like if you're if you're truly are a defensive minded guy, you're serving the other players to help them get tackles and help their stats because you're filling your gap and you're doing your job. And so could be a game that you don't get many tackles or don't get many assists because you're doing your job. And the only reward is knowing that you've served your brother. What a great principle for young men to understand and learn that I win when other people win. You know, the old adage, when the waters come, all boats need to rise, right? That's the mentality. Well, that's rooted in faith. And so um yeah, I just think that we what was so sweet about our program was it was clear we were about we're an Coach Eisman say we're an unapologetically Christian football program. That's how we'd start every meeting. And we were committed to that 100%. Lots of coaches that were there because they were there. A lot of kids that were there and parents who wanted their kids to grow up in a space like that. We were committed to that, and we won, right? Like, and we won. And so it's just a great it's awesome. It's a great experience. There's a picture that used to hang in a locker room of us. It's one of my most cherished pictures that I wish I could pull it up, but it's all of us sitting around after the state championship game in a big circle with parents and players and coaches in a big circle praying. And what people don't realize a lot of times when they see that is that's when we lost,
Mm.
right? We lost the state championship during that game in that picture. And that picture truly represents what we were about because we won. Even though we lost on the game field, we won because boys and young men understood what was important, what was real, and what was reality. And that's family, that's brotherhood, that's friendships, that's loving and serving each other. And that's what that picture represented because that will carry them all through college, all through the rest of their lives. And so we need to get back to that, right? I think as a industry, if you will, is because the number of kids that actually go play college sports, the number of kids that actually go and play in the NFL are few and far between. But what we do have is influence over young men becoming good men that, from a Christian standpoint, love the Lord, love their family, love their spouse, and honor people and honor their community by the work that they do, the lives that they live. And that is eternal, that's universal, and we need to get back to that space because our world needs it and young men need it. I'm going to preach here for a sec. What also what I do is I'm a mental health counselor, and man, there's a war on boys. Masculinity is something that has been demonized and toxic this and toxic that, and so a lot of young men are looking for places for them to feel accepted, wanted, appreciated, honored for who they are as young men, just being boys. And as a result of kind of the world and the society that is being beat down on them, they're the cause of everything that's wrong in society right now, according to some. And so they need a place where they know that they're appreciated, loved, and cared for, and where men who are grown men can be models and examples of them what it means to know God, what it means to be a good man in the community, what it means to work hard in his job, what it means to have a good character and a good reputation. Young men need to see that, right? And if unfortunately all we're doing is giving them an image of masculinity that's about, if you will, getting the bag, right? Then what are we? We're not actually really showing them what good masculine men should be, of character, of integrity, of righteousness. That's what good men are. And we need more of that. And I'm afraid that because of what's going on in college sports and so forth and so on, is that that level of um, focus. I believe there's programs out there. Don't get me wrong. There are men doing that. I think Notre Dame's doing that. I think Ohio State's doing that. Like there's some clearly programs that are trying to do. Dabo Sweeney we talked about are trying to do that, right? Um, but it seems that gets lost in the shuffle of all of the. I got to get what's mine as soon as I can, and that's just not treating. That's not helping young men become strong men of character, of integrity, and of righteousness.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts.
I mean that was a lot of thoughts. I don't really know
Yeah.
how to follow up on that. Like that's a lot of good stuff there. You know, full transparency, I am a Texas Longhorn
Yep.
fan. I remember I
Yep.
was uh what I turned 12 years old the day of the Vince Young Rose Bowl, right? So like I remember watching that game on my birthday and like uh kind of falling in love with football. Like that was like the my first like core memory of like, man, this is so cool. Uh and I watched ball. I liked ball. I used to go to the grocery store and be put in the cart wearing like Dallas Cowboy. Like I had a helmet, I had a jersey, I had pants. Like I went as a football player, like to the grocery store when I was a kid. Like I have always loved ball, but like that was a defining moment for me. But I bring that up because like you're talking about people of character and like I think I'm sure it gets lost in the shuffle sometimes, but like I like to think about Arch Manning a little bit too, like
Mm.
with Peyton, Eli, and uh, what's his dad's name? Cooper. Uh, like talk about a family that has the bag secured, right? Like I mean
Yep.
they're so far above like every other person in the football world in terms of like respect and money and fame and all these things. Um, And, when yeah, he's the highest paid NIL athlete like in the country and like I get all that. Um, but the fact that, he didn't transfer out with
Hmm.
viewers staying there. He sat for redshirted, played sparingly, and then this was his first year starting. Um, and like you have everything, right? You have everything that you could do. You could transfer out. You could do these things. But I think because of those three people that I mentioned, like the uncles and his dad, like they're trying to set the stage for no, this is what it means to be like a good person. Here's what a good man looks like. And I think back to like Peyton's adopted child, right, that he has.
Hmm.
I think back to like the story of Cooper Manning and like his injury stuff and like the derailing of his career and like what how that probably influenced Arch and you know yeah he's getting the bag but he's also doing a lot of things that are of high integrity I think uh
Sure.
which needs to be kind of recognized and
Yeah.
respected and appreciated because more people need to see like oh you can have everything but you still need to be at your core a good human being. You still
Yeah.
need to have you say you're going to do this and let's do this. We're going to work hard for this. We're going to stay through adversity and fight for this. And whether you have everything or you have nothing, you still, you know, are a reflection of what you do. And if you're doing things the right way, it's going to translate. And so um that's just I think that's a really easy example as me is like sipping out of my
Yeah.
embossed can cooler for with my HEB diet Dr. B. Like uh
Yeah.
like that's an easy correlation because you can still get everything, but like you still need to be a good human being to really maximize it. And like me personally, like I came from a situation where uh you know, parental wise, dad was a truck driver multiple states away. Didn't have contact with him until I was past 9 years old. Mom was kind of in and out of behind bars and all these things. Um, and didn't grow up in the greatest situation, right? But I love when I realized that, oh, man, coaching is really cool because I get to relate my story to these young men that don't have great situations too, whether that's public or private school, like you said, and they all have problems. They're just different problems. Just because a problem is small to you doesn't mean it's not Mount Everest to somebody else.
That's right. That's right.
Um, and so like I get to take my struggles, my problems, no matter how small or big they are, and try to relate them to young people and give them a place to uh, confide, grow, sometimes cry. Like I've had to in 3A high school in the Piney Woods, like I've had to go pick up a kid a town over because his parents were arrested and he didn't have a way to get to school and he was staying with an aunt a town over, and I went and picked him up and brought him to school every day for a while. And like those are tough moments for people, and so like I said, the masculinity attack in a lot of ways, I think you hit the nail on the head in a lot of ways. Like men, no matter where they're from, especially young men in high schools, are confused on like, where do I fit in society because it seems like nobody likes me. And
Right.
so we as coaches, you need to be a good man of integrity so that you can take those guys under your wings and help grow them into the citizens that they should be. And that's a job that we have aside from just winning games. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
we get fired and hired based off games sometimes. Your teach tape and who you know, your network and all that good stuff, but like if you can't take a young man who's struggling and build them into something better off the field, then you might not be the right guy for the program that I'm trying to be a part of.
That's right. That's right.
Like,
And and here's a thing, right? Like high school football is not rocket science,
no,
right? It's when we get into college football, we get into to NFL and all that. And I would argue that even those layers, I mean, you just got better athletes that we got to confuse and better coaches that we gotta mess with. And so it's really coach to coach as far as like scheme and so forth and so on. But I think just on the high school level, it's just not rocket science on defensively, you got X many number of gaps. We got to make sure those gaps are filled somehow. And we got to make sure people are covered and don't get uncovered, right? Like offense, you got to make sure you block the guys and you get routes that the quarterback has certain reads to make sure that he can get a guy open and get on the ball, whether it's handing it off or throwing the ball. Like, I mean, that's really, it's not really rocket science, right? I was at a Glazer's clinic and a defensive coordinator was up giving a talk, and one of the best lines I've heard is like, I just realized one day that I just need to be smarter than a 17-year-old, right? A 17-year-old quarterback. That's all I have to do. And so I think it's true. There's a lot of truth to that. And I think, you know, so if that is the case, right? If it's true that especially high school, especially, potentially, like it's true that high school sports and high school football is not rocket science. Then how much time do we need to be spending on X's and O's versus how much time we need to be building young men? And I would say that it's not a 50-50. I would say it's probably not a 60-40, right? I think it's probably an 80-20. And I think 80% of our time should be spent on building young men and men of character and men of integrity that show up in the classroom well, that get their work done, that know how to say yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, um, to know how to deal with adversity and struggle, and walk alongside them in that. And about 20% is strategy and ball and X's and O's and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure there's out there people who completely disagree with me, but I think in the long term, what's good for young men and boys that are growing up in this world is that 80%, because the fact of the matter is so many of them will not see the field outside of football, outside of high school. um and it's even going into this. I follow this guy on Instagram. His name is Coach Beast Football, and he does commentary, I guess, on just football and little league football and youth league football. And he said this: if you're coaching kids to be men, you're doing work society forgot to value.
Mm,
If you're coaching kids to be men, you're doing work society forgot to value. I think he's spot on, right? Because everyone, I think most people would say, even a lot of parents would say it should be 80% X's and O's, 20% building young men. And the reality is that I think our society needs men of integrity, men of character, and we as coaches have an incredibly unique ability to speak into that because heck, the football field, practice field is a it's life. There's so many opportunities and so many things that we can make life connections and metaphors with when you win and when you lose. When you don't have refs that are calling things the way the injustice of, if ever anybody's ever had an injustice on, especially coaching freshman or JV, when you got officials just completely calling it one sided and having to deal with that injustice and letting kids know that sometimes people in authority make mistakes, but we have to find a way to win. We have to find a way to be successful. Well, that's dealing with quote injustice, and so like you got to learn how to deal with that. You got to learn how to lose and be a good loser and a good winner. These are things that sport itself teaches, and that's why it's so valuable, um, and why everybody should participate in sport of some sort. Because the life lessons that we get are invaluable, only if you have coaches who are willing to help kids see that. Coaches and parents who are willing to let kids see those invaluable lessons that they experience.
yeah, yeah. Uh, I got two little asides for you. One's just a quick fun story with my wife. Like my wife is, I gotta take my coach brain down and be like normal person brain sometimes with sports. But like she's a pretty well educated in like baseball. Like she knows baseball pretty well. She grew up watching a lot of basketball. Like her childhood hero was Hakeem Olajuwon because she grew up right in
Yeah,
those like prime like Rockets years. But football was always kind of a mystery a little bit, and she's always, I guess, the plays of football and like didn't quite understand how what was happening, but her misperception of that was like, how many plays are there? Like, why do we go through so many secrets are being kept on like plays? I'm like, well, it's not that the plays are secret. Like at the end of the day, you have inside zone, you have outside zone, you have power, you have counter, you have trap, you have like there's eight, nine,
A-Rod, yeah,
10, like there's
yeah.
10 run schemes you could probably realistically like categorize. Um, there's, I don't know, eight, six quick games, there's 10 intermediate stuff, and there's probably about five or six like common deep shot type concepts. There's three types of protections, really. There's formation rules, so there is a limited amount of formations kind of that you can kind of get into. For the most part, it's 2x2, 3x1, 2x1. And
Right,
like
right.
it's not that the plays are secret. We all kind of know what plays we're lining up in. There's only so many fronts really you can classify. It's the matchup base, it's the why we're doing this, it's the, well, this is slightly better against this. And that's the secret sauce of like coordinating or calling or signaling things in. Um, but in her brain, I think that she thought that, oh, you trade film with people, you get to watch other people's film, so like, aren't they worried that you're gonna like steal their plays? And I'm like, well, it's not really how that works. Like, but it really like, duh, like there's only so many things that really you do on a football field.
Yeah,
And the amount of time that we spend, not necessarily me and you, but like as coaches, as a group, that we spend on schematic, especially at the high school level, like you're saying, man, it doesn't make sense for as much as there is and the time that we correlate to it. And like you said, like that 80-20 flip needs to really change for like the sport in general and sports across the board in general. Because man, nobody overcomplicates football better than football coaches, especially at 6A high schools and major metros. Like we make too much of a big deal about the schematic of the game. And schematic's important, don't get me wrong. Like there's you
No,
can
it's
win or lose a
huge.
game on schematics alone. Like
100%.
and I've seen it happen multiple
I've been
times.
a part of it.
Been a
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah.
100%. Um but if you can't figure out the schematics of it, then maybe don't be in a position to be in charge of the schematics of it.
Right. Right.
But it was
Right.
just like it was so eye opening, like her understanding, like she's pretty well versed in sports, but like the idea that the plays are secret and like the scheme work and how much time you spend on this and watching film and tendencies. It's like yeah, but there's only so much we're doing. Like realistically, like we're gonna run 5 run concepts throughout the year. We're gonna carry about 3 quick games. We're gonna carry about 3 intermediates. We're gonna carry 2 shots, 2 protections, and we're gonna line up in about 6 different formations. Oh, then why do you watch so much film? It's like that's honestly a good question. I probably should watch a little less film. Like
Yeah.
honestly, uh, but I think it goes to show some of the like we feel the pressure of as coaches like we feel the pressure of like well the the grind mentality of like well you got to be working on this you got to be working on this you got to be working on this because you got to set your team up for success but maybe the way you set your team up for success is by building better quality young men right
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's where your program comes in and if you're building a
Yeah.
program instead of a team you don't have to spend that type of hours that type of energy on the scheme you're going to get to work on your players and by the time that it's time for them to make those plays under the lights they can because they have been built by the program and they're prepared for those moments.
Like it's kind of your return on investment, right?
Yeah.
Like, when I was inside linebacker coach and before I became as the DC as well, I started a thing with my linebackers. I coached kind of inside and outside backers. We call it was Mia Mondays, and every Monday we'd go over to Mia's table and after practice and eat. Um, and it's kind of what the return. Like I could have gone and watched practice film, and I did obviously watch practice film after that, but um, but the time and energy that was spent for kind of an hour eating, you know, good food at Mia Mondays with my position group, man, built relationships that allowed me to mentor, and model for them things that were needed uh, for those kids. And ultimately what it also did was it tore down the barrier where they didn't think I was approachable as a coach.
Mm,
And so now when they have questions about play, when they have questions about technique that they may have been afraid to ask because this just happens, right? You've got young guys, you got your coach, this personification of what a coach is, and now they're not, maybe they have questions or they're not honest about what's going on because they just don't know how to communicate. And so in a sense you're modeling for them how to communicate with their coach by simply sitting around a table and breaking bread together and talking about life and talking ball, right?
right.
Like talking who's coming up and why we shouldn't be worried about these guys, and etc. And you're modeling for that level of communication that I think ultimately transferred onto the field, right? Like my guys knew that they could come and talk to me about anything, whether they screwed up or messed up, because they knew they had their relationship with me, because they learned how to communicate. It wasn't because we were friends, because like besties, because we weren't. Like like I'm a coach, you're a player, but the relationship was there, and I believe that it helped them relate and connect because it modeled for them what communication looked like.
Right.
I think that's potentially a greater return on investment than 2 hours watching practice film, right?
Yeah. If you need 2 hours to watch your practice film you need to change what you're practicing.
And you forget, like, and I think oftentimes as coaches we forget the player factor, right? We can have the best scheme in the world, we can have the best film hours that we watch to call whatever on a particular play, but at the end of the day, end of the day, the players are playing, and if they mess up, they mess up,
And they're
right?
going
Like,
to.
and they're going to, right? Like I love John Wooden. He's like, I don't coach during games. The players play. My coaching is Monday through Friday. The game is on Saturday. I don't really coach during the game because if I haven't, like, they got to go play. And if they screw up and don't do whatever, that's that they have to own that. It's not always my fault. It's sometimes our fault because maybe we didn't communicate well, or we didn't prepare them well, or they came out in a formation that we didn't prepare for. But ultimately, we got to let the players play and then suffer the consequences of their mistakes because they didn't watch film, because they didn't prepare, because they weren't locked in, because they were afraid, whatever. And then now we adjust and take, we have a great learning lesson from that. And we move on because that's what we're about, building that program and going, yeah, when I tell you 5 times that when they run up and pistol, you run this play and you don't do it, that's on you. It's not on me. And so you got to take responsibility for your actions. What a great lessons for a 14, 16-year-old, 17-year-old to learn is to take responsibility for their actions when they make a mistake.
Yeah, life's full of consequences, and they will
Yep.
sneak up on you in a hurry if you aren't prepared on how to deal with them.
That's right.
All right, well, Matt, we're 45 minutes ish on this recording, so I
Sure.
probably a good time to kind of wrap it up. We've
Let me just say this real quick.
yeah.
If
What's
you're
your
a
close?
coach watching this, if you're a coach watching this, or especially if you're a young coach watching this, man, I just want to encourage you that investment in character building, investment in integrity building, investment in humility, these need to be a part of your program because you're not just winning games, you're building young men. And please, for the love, don't forget that. That's a huge important. Parents, schools, communities are giving you these young men for 2 hours every single day during the season, Friday nights, Saturday mornings. They're giving you this time. Don't waste it by just focusing on the things that are just not really, they're things that will pass away. Whether that's in high school, whether it's in college, whatever, they will pass away. And so don't forget to focus on the things that will not, like how we treat people, respect, manners, integrity. Those things are much that will last much longer than a high school football career or college football career or even an NFL football career. Please don't forget that.
Yeah, well said. Well said. That's a good place to wrap. Matt, thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.
We'll be in touch, I'm sure, as we kind of do other things, but that'll sign us off for this. Appreciate you watching, and come back for more.